Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Thoth, the Scribe podcast. And I have here with me today a very special guest. How do I pronounce your name firstly? Is it Chris Dreisbach or Dreisbach?
It's Dreisbach, and I think you nailed it earlier when you were speaking Hebrew. You nailed my last name dead on in Hebrew, so I've never heard it.
First of all, can you present yourself?
My name is Chris Dreisbach. I'm a serial entrepreneur from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, over here in the United States, and I just love helping people, and I love connecting with people, and I really love helping people achieve their dreams and their goals. But that's me, and in a quick nutshell. I'm also a dad, and a proud one.
So you have a very interesting personal story, and I think it's a great inspiration for a lot of people watching if they are dealing with some of the same or similar problems or dilemmas or hurdles they need to overcome in their own lives. Without any judgment, can you speak to your experience while using, different substances? So can you speak to your experience with substance abuse and what you gone through whilst on that path of perdition and kind of oblivion?
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about tiptoeing on glass around me. I mean, you can speak as freely as you need to. That my story illustrates the dangers of substance use more so than any glorification, as most of the things that happened to me as a result of my substance use disorder were very negative. So this is a cautionary tale at absolute worst. And nothing glorifying substances whatsoever. So YouTube, don't be mean. Don't take down this podcast. We are not glorifying anything, I promise. But I got started, in a good little suburban area called Emmaus, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. And I went to a good school, and I went to had a nice suburban neighborhood I grew up in. Both of my parents are still together to this day. We had a house, I had 3 little brothers, just a good kind of American upbringing, if you will. And there was something always really wrong with me internally. And I could never, during those days, figure out what that was. Some of the symptoms I experienced where I was really uncomfortable in social situations. I could never really feel like I connected with people around me, including my family. I just always felt like I was a little bit off, and my mind was always racing about 1 million miles a second, sort of like you and I were discussing earlier before we started recording. Just that complete scatterbrained everywhere. I'm thinking
where
about everything.
that kind of rift or kind of a separation from your family actually occurred at which moment or point in time?
It wasn't even an actual physical separation. I think it was inside.
Yeah, I'm not talking about a physical. Of course, I'm not talking about a physical separation. I'm talking about, kind of a aloofness or distant relationship.
Yeah, it was always kind of ever present inside of me. Like I could never really feel like I would connect with anybody. And then one day when I was 13, I started drinking at a family wedding alcohol. And what happened when I drank alcohol was it took that uncomfortable feeling and that disconnection away from me, and it made me feel comfortable, and it stopped my mind from racing. And because of the effect that it produced for me, I really made it my goal to obtain it as often as I could. It was effectively like that, and I don't even know that I knew it was happening. I just knew that I felt a whole lot better when I drank than when I didn't. And I started, finding alcohol as often as I could, and I would drink in excess as much as I could to, pass out, just kind of stop feeling. And after a while, it stopped working, and I moved on to more dangerous substances. And I'm not going to even name those substances because I don't even want to run the risk that YouTube's going to get mad. But I effectively got addicted.
The chemical types of names are, they are permitted, they are allowed, but, not the kind of,
Yeah,
The
I don't even know if I'm smart enough to know the chemical names of all these things, but I got addicted to
I'm not
every
talking
substance you
about
can think of.
the chemical compound or
Oh,
formula.
okay.
I'm talking, about the scientific kind of names.
Okay, so I'm still scared to even say them because I don't want YouTube to get mad. But I got
Okay.
addicted to every drug known to man, and what ended up happening was I started to commit crimes to be able to pay for those substances, and in the
Yeah,
commission of
burglary.
those
Yeah.
burglary, yep, burglary was the first one I got arrested for in 2006. I was, maybe almost 19 years old, and getting arrested on felony burglary charges. Just being a good suburban kid like myself, I was terrified to go to jail because all I knew about jail was what TV and society had told me. And, there's some horrific things that occur within prisons.
Yeah.
Thankfully, none of those things happened to me personally. But what did happen was I was ripped from my life and I was tossed in a cage and I was told when to do things, how to do things, at what time to do things, where to do them. And, given a monochrome colored uniform, I traded my name in for a number. My number was 0131644. And realistically, what happened was I had a medical problem. Substance use disorder is defined as a medical issue. It's something that can be arrested and can be fixed. And in 2006 and 2005 and 2004, when I was using substances, society didn't really look at it that way. It was looked on as a moral failing, or as though I had weak willpower or weak constitution. And none of those things were true because my constitution and my willpower in every other area of my life is rather strong. Very strong, in fact, because I'm able to do a whole lot of things that a whole lot of people aren't able to do in their lives. But in regards to substances, it seemed like no matter what consequences were coming down the pike for me, none of them were strong enough to change me. None of them were strong enough to drive me towards recovery until after my third trip to prison. I got sent by a judge to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, an hour and change away from where I grew up geographically. And here they put me in a halfway house, which is a home for folks who are getting out of jail or getting out of treatment. And at that halfway house, I got linked up with a group of young guys who were excited about recovery and excited about changing the way they lived. And those guys showed me exactly how to get through what I was going through because they had just gone through it a couple years before. And I followed them pretty blindly. And what ended up happening was, I was able to get a job. I was able to start feeling connected with a new group of people. And with that job, I started to make money. I started to pay back a whole lot of the damage that I had caused back in my hometown. And after a period of time, I moved out of that halfway house. I got my own apartment. And even further down the line, I started working at the treatment center that I had gone to after my third jail trip. And at that point, it kind of launched this train of circumstances in my life where I would go on to found the first sober living organization in Lancaster County, where I would house folks who were getting out of treatment or getting out of jail, just like I was housed when I was getting out of treatment and getting out of jail. But we developed a 64-point guideline sheet to help the folks who were coming into our houses relearn how to live. Simple stuff like making your bed or, showering or, things that we take for granted as normal folks. And man, that blew up. So many people did well at the house that we had to go on and get another house and another house and another house, and ended up in the 150 some bed range. And throughout the course of that, I discovered that I had a real passion for real estate along with helping people. And thankfully, I had some great mentors who taught me how to purchase real estate using other people's money. And honestly, I never would have been able to do it because I was a random, junkie. I was homeless for a period of time. I, lived in a halfway house. Thankfully, great mentors and people kind of picked me up and showed me the way. And after a period of time, that morphed into a construction company, that morphed into treatment center, Blueprints for Addiction Recovery, that have been running since 2016. And it morphed into a whole ton of different other business opportunities because I discovered that I loved entrepreneurship. I really loved building things. round up. And I mean, that was a real quick, real basic rundown of a whole lot of the stuff that's been going on.
Yeah, so those are a lot of details, but getting back,
Sure.
back to the first time around when you first encountered, your first encounter with, police. Yeah, what was the catalyst for that event?
Well, what happened was I had run out of the drug of choice that I was using at the time, and I needed to obtain more. And at the time, I was using a needle to ingest it. And in America in 2006, needles were illegal unless you had diabetes, and you couldn't obtain them anywhere except for on the black market or dirty ones on the street. As you imagine, that is very dangerous to use dirty needles. Diseases can be spread, so on and so forth. So I had found a friend from high school who was diabetic, and she would often, sell me her needles or give me her needles or whatever it might be. And, they were clean and they were, accessible to me. And the one morning, I think it was March 30th, I was going over to her house and she wasn't home. And so just like I had done a bunch of times before, I walked into her house and I grabbed a needle from her, cabinet, and I left. Now that morning it was a little bit different because her mom was home and she was upstairs. My friend had lived on the bottom floor of maybe a duplex or whatever you want to call it, a 2-story house. And I scared her mom when I walked in that day because she wasn't expecting me. So she naturally called the police, and within a couple of minutes, the police had arrested me on felony burglary charges because I had crossed the plane of her home and I had taken an item. And that is all that it takes here in America to be considered a burglary. Being so young and unsure of the justice system at the time, I freely and openly admitted that I had walked into the house and I was saddled with that felony for the rest of my life. So that is the catalyst, that is what occurred, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, so what's your take, looking back on that incident? What do you think went through your mind when you just was it just, a kind of a craze, a maniacal type of moment, momentary, kind of trying to fulfill and supply that craving at that moment?
I mean, that was always the thing that guided me anywhere was how do I obtain more drugs? And, the first step to obtaining more was finding the way that I was going to deliver it into my body. So that was the first step that morning, was going to that house. And, obviously once I was arrested, it was terrifying. It was, just something I'd never experienced before, being, around all those flashing lights and, being in handcuffs and being tossed in the back of a car and then taken to a cage and interrogated. And I mean, none of it was pleasant. None of it was anything that I would ever recommend anybody ever have to go through. But it is something that I did go through, and despite all the terror and the horror of that moment, I went through it again and again and again and again, no matter what. It almost seemed like there was no ability for me to stop doing what I was doing, no matter what.
So, in between kind of the periods of going in and out of incarceration and jails and penitentiaries, were you ever actually feeling better or elevated or good when you actually consumed the drug? Was it was it a better feeling over time, an incremental type of thing, or was it a kind of each time you needed to increase the dose more and more until you can achieve that initial kind of feeling?
Yeah, that's the main crux of the issue, is that, it's never as good as the first time. So then the second time you're chasing that first time, and the third time you're chasing the first time, and the fourth time you're chasing the first time, and the 50th time, and the 900th time. And it's something that you can never really catch. You never recapture it until you get into recovery and you build a life of purpose, and you build a life that is so much better than anything drugs have ever given you. And that's what I like to spend the most time talking about, because once we find our purpose and once we step out of a life that we used to live, folks in recovery are some of the most impressive humans that I've ever gotten to meet.
Recidivism, going in and out of, as I've mentioned before, penitentiaries and jails and lockups.
Yes.
There are a lot of terms for it. Correctional facilities.
There you go.
Nowadays they are called correctional facilities.
And that's that term.
Or correctional penitentiaries or whatever.
I think that term should be used very loosely, because there's very little correction that seems to go on in many jails, and it seems to be getting better as years progress, but the level of correction that I received was minimal at best, because they were focused on something that wasn't even the actual problem. To have your best chance of success, you're correct. You definitely want to have medical monitoring and a team of therapists and people in your corner to help you get through it. Now, unfortunately, my early experiences were just being tossed in a cage and left to detox for days and days on end in my own filth, and rather unpleasant experiences that societally should have been enough to turn me around never were, because I had a brain disease and nobody was treating the brain disease until I finally landed in the right spot.
So after you had gone through that entire saga, the dark times in your life, and you decided to turn around your personal life and actually try to contribute and give to the community, give back what you taken literally and societally. So you wanted to give back to your community, albeit it's not your immediate community. It's a little further down the line from where you lived.
Well, I moved here. As soon as I got out of the halfway house, I lived in Lancaster. I've been here ever since. It's been about 17 years. So this is my community, and I
now
love
it is your community.
Yes.
So, what kind of prompts you to actually start and open your own treatment care facilities, need and supply in the market? Was it that type of thing, or was it more a charitable entrepreneurship, trying to bootstrap your own treatment centers and stuff like this? Or was it purely also on the business side of kind of things?
What ended up happening when we had the sober living community here, we noticed a real big gap in outpatient treatment, quality outpatient therapy for people who were coming through the houses. And it was often just, not even worth people getting on a bus and going to therapy for. This was before, phones had like camera capabilities and telehealth and things of that nature. So often to go get therapy, they would have to figure out a way to get to a therapist's office. And a lot of times they didn't even see enough reward from going to therapy that they would just stop. And when you stop going to therapy when you have a brain disease, that is not good for recovery, not good at all. So we noticed a huge gap in high quality, actual individualized treatment for people, because everybody's a different person. We all come from different places, different areas. We've all had different experiences. We come from different societal backgrounds. We come from different economic backgrounds. There's so many different things that differentiate each person, so it's impossible to throw a blanket over everybody's problem and say this will fix it. And that's why treatment numbers of success have been so abysmally low. So we wanted to change that game and start something that was purely individualized and make sure that we had our therapists getting deep to the core problem of the issue for each individual. And at Blueprints, we've seen tremendous success with that exact model, making sure that treatment is individualized and everybody is getting the care that they need instead of the care that is blanket accepted.
Each kind of a patient or client gets a kind of a tailor-made or program that is designated to him and solely to him, and matches his prerequisite, his needs, his whatever condition, physically, mentally, housing condition. Yep. Or his personal family or marital problems or status.
Yeah, there's so many different variables that you could never really just say one thing is going to cure everything that ails one individual person. So you have to dive deep into that biopsychosocial history of the individual, figure out where this all came from, and then tailor a plan to fix it clinically. And it's been such a massive success. I mean, the number of humans who have come through Blueprints and gone on to do incredible things is tremendous. And I couldn't be more proud of the people who work at Blueprints, who are the ones doing that work day in and day out. I have very little to do with it anymore these days, but the staff of 170 some people, they are the ones who are out there doing that hard work every single day, and I could not be more proud of them.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is great to hear. Let's move on to the most important topic of the day on the table. Waffles. So
waffles.
What is your kind of intimate, relationship or I don't know, a symbiotic relationship to waffles that I share, as a large individual in dimension.
Dimensionally large is definitely a good way to describe me too.
Yes.
Environmentally
challenged. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2020, I got the opportunity to invest in a thing called Doughheads Waffles, which is a food truck.
Great name
here. Great name. And Doughheads had this idea that they really wanted to make their workforce folks who had been in jail, folks who had struggled with the things that I struggled with, and that really hit me in the heart that they wanted to do something like that for the community, give opportunity and really just a leg up for folks who are often underserved and ignored. And I wanted to jump in with Drew and Kristen and Joe, who's a guy I'd known for a long time, and I made an investment, and we got a second truck, and we started to take off and hire some more people to serve waffles out of a very, very, very hot truck. And it was just such a tremendous time in my life in 2019, 2020 when we were starting that. This year I think we're taking a little break from running that waffle truck, so there's not too many events going on this year, and it makes me a little bit sad, but sometimes you have to step back from some things to give attention to others.
Yeah, the waffles are, waffles are quite, they can be fun, for people who are, in shape, have an active lifestyle. But people in our cadre or our, degree, we have to, watch our steps when it comes to waffles.
I ate a whole lot of those waffles, and they're maybe not the healthiest option, but they sure are delicious, especially when it's summertime. And So You're right, though. We
Yeah,
got to watch our girlish figures. It's very important, guy.
yeah. Our Rubenesque type of bodies. Yeah, we talked about, overcoming, personal adversities and being able to, traverse great hurdles and chasms that, kind of endanger your life and your surroundings, and your progression and your potential, squander your potential. Let's talk about, a very different subject, but what do you think is the power or the purpose of art?
That's a deep question. And I think that's different for every single person because I personally love live music. If it was an art, that would probably be my favorite, even though I'm not musically inclined in any way, shape, or form, nor could I ever create quality live music. I'm a true appreciator of it. And, I have a group of business partners. We started a thing called SO Arts here in Lancaster, downtown Lancaster. And SO Arts is a collective of local artists, 70 plus local artists. And my three partners in that business are all in recovery as well. And they really wanted to share their love of actual art, paintings. And one of the fellas is a tattoo artist. And, they each express their own love of art in different ways. And they brought it all together in this one collective in downtown Lancaster. And it's one of the most awesome things to watch because then other people can develop their passions that are similar to my partner's passions. And while art is not my thing personally, it's beautiful to be able to lend, my business expertise, which may be my art. Entrepreneurship may be one of my arts. So it's really different for everybody. I personally am just soothed by live music. I love watching it be created by a group of individuals on stage. That isn't my purpose, it isn't my passion, but I sure do love it when I have time to love it. And, art is something that can be supremely and significantly healing for somebody who does have that as their passion. Because I watch, my partners in other businesses too, create their art. One of our companies is Three Legacies Wrestling. I don't know how popular wrestling is out in Israel, but Three Legacies Wrestling is
it's quite popular. The traditional Greek wrestling is very popular. Yeah, in Israel, but judo and karate are much more prominent.
Yeah, but not professional wrestling.
We don't have a lot of professional wrestlers, that's true, on the international kind of competitive level. But we do have a lot of karate and judo champions. We also have, for the first time, an MMA champion. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, those are all different art forms, and those are all different things that people have passion for. And, the Three Legacies Wrestling is more of the entertainment style wrestling. But if you look up Three Legacies Wrestling on
the
YouTube,
exhibition kind of a wrestling. Yeah.
Yep. But that is, my partner Jesus is one of his. It is his favorite thing in the world, and it is his art, and it is his passion, and being able to support him in that. Watching. Yeah, sort of like Nacho Libre, similar. But yeah, check out Three Legacies on YouTube for sure because that's an art form that is definitely entertaining for a lot of people.
Yeah, sounds awesome. A lot of people, I see more and more different types of art forms. People may perceive them to be their kind of recreational activity or even their professional lives. I see, badminton, as a type of art, or even rock climbing and stuff like that, and chess. is a
Ooh,
type of
yes.
art, and I love sports. Now we'll talk about artificial art, artificial
Right.
intelligence. In this kind of a modern, postmodern, contemporaneous epoch of history, we see a lot of major leaps and bounds being, performed and executed by different emerging and nascent technologies that are developing. So those types of advances and technology also go hand in hand with the advent and introduction of artificial intelligence in its kind of a software virtual form. The chat GPT, for example, in recent years, and we have a lot of open AI or AIX, Elon Musk, company. What do you think about automation in conjunction with artificial intelligence? If those two types of technologies and system will be implemented, in different fields and disciplines, will that actually, have a beneficial, positive effect in the long run for society and humanity as a whole? The burdens of menial task, and a lot of jobs and professions that are procured or outsourced to different private conglomerates and companies, and monopolies that actually gain everything from natural resources, materials. They have all the workforce and the backing, governmental funds, and different programs and projects funding these semi sovereign oligarchies that are disguised as capital, driven companies that want to invest in different countries, to invest in natural resources, and to help bring a lot of people into the workforce and to pay living wages. What do you think about that whole entire system?
I mean, AI and artificial intelligence is not like one of my areas of expertise, but I can see it being absolutely beneficial in a whole lot of different industries. Medical, for example, obviously, hopefully, with more machinery and more precise artificial intelligence, maybe we can figure out how to stop a whole lot of the diseases that are killing entire generations of people on Earth right now. That's my great hope. I could see it destroying a whole lot of people's livelihoods, a whole lot of people's jobs, as they automate more and more, fast food restaurants, and automate more and more, writing and more things of that nature. I found it super interesting when I first found out about ChatGPT, how it could write better than a lot of people. And, writing and speaking and things of that nature are something I've always been really good at. And I feel like, AI kind of levels that playing field for folks who don't have that natural ability to do things. So I can see it being positive in that way, helping people strengthen themselves in areas that they might have weaknesses in. But I do also see your point in folks who have a lot of resources and advantages, and how they would likely take that and turn it into a more capitalist function, and maybe not think of the human consequence of AI.
Yeah, I like that answer. It's very concise, succinct, Do you have any closing words, to finish everything? A nice throwaway line or something, or some sort of a message or a
Yeah.
moral to the story for our audiences.
Yeah. So in closing, I would like to say that no matter how far down you've gone in your life, if you're struggling with literally anything, don't be ashamed of that struggle. Take charge of that struggle. Find ways out. Reach out. I mean, if you're struggling with substance use disorder, that is something that I have tremendous experience in. Please reach out to me on, social media, however you can. You're not alone in anything you struggle with. We are all human. We all have shortcomings. We all have failings. We all have difficulties. And the true measure of success is how we handle those difficulties and what we do to pull ourselves up. And furthermore, what we do to pull others around us up. So don't ever be ashamed of a struggle. Don't ever be afraid to step out of the box and really find out what it is your purpose in life could be. And, I'm just honored to be able to be a part of other people's lives and a part of this podcast. So, Guy, thank you so much for having me on here, man. It's been
Thank you so much,
absolute
Chris,
pleasure.
for agreeing to appear on my podcast and being such an engaging and interesting, conversationalist or interlocutor